Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This speaking show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Walking Dead. Now, this episode was a very interesting episode. This is another episode that kind of focused mainly on the kingdom. I thought it was kind of interesting, the opening, because the opening said The Walking Dead were never usually that short. It was only maybe a minute at most. Usually they're kind of longer. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting that was so short. But it's one of those situations where if you didn't pay enough attention at the beginning, which I didn't, you really would have missed out. And it's like you kind of had a feeling for how things were going. Because I was like, what does that mean? Why are they just putting that one fruit? I was like, is that all they had? Like, what's going on? Or they set a trap or something? But then obviously the episode kind of rewinds it and kind of shows you that basically there's a situation going on with the garden that they usually gather, raise all the fruit and stuff like that. Obviously, very few people know about the whole deal with the Savior. So for like that one lady in particular that came to Ezekiel earlier on, she was like, "Oh yeah, what's up with that whole garden?" She's like, I'm sorry to tell you this, my liege, but basically there were like bugs in there, so they were only able to save a few. The rest, would basically have to be burned so it wouldn't affect the rest of the vegetation. Which I did love the fact is that she is like, oh, I'm going to stay over here. She's like, no, don't worry about it. The tiger's fine with me. She's like, I know. That's what I'm worried about, that the tiger likes me. And then it roared a little bit when she was talking. She's like, yeah, I think I just pissed my pants. But that was already very, obviously, no, everyone just thinks it's just a garden that Ezekiel likes, but he likes that particular garden because, the way they were talking about it, it seems like there's the garden food that he uses for the exchanges. Or maybe it's just like what he grows in that particular garden is part of the deals of the food they have to exchange. So maybe that's it. Because I was also thinking the way he was talking about, oh, so it won't get to the rest of the garden. So I'm like, the rest of your food is fine. So it's not nothing to be stressed about, is it? Because especially because it only grows that one particular fruit. Because the last time we saw it, they had watermelons and stuff. But now I'm like, okay, no, those saviors know that they also have to grow that too. So it's not just they have to give a certain amount of a certain thing. So in this particular case, that fruit, they have to give a certain amount of it, in exchange for their tribute. So I was like, now I see where Ezekiel was coming from. But then there's this whole laid out plan that Richard has that basically, once again, I was wondering, I knew it was only a matter of time. Because at first, obviously, he wanted to use Carol as a means of starting the kind of sparking things between Ezekiel and the Saviors, mainly because he's like, oh, I know Ezekiel cares about Carol, so if I can use her, I can spark this. Daryl made him change his mind. Me thinking oh, obviously he's going to set up Morgan. I thought something really weird. He was like, yo, Morgan, I don't agree with what you believe, but the fact of the matter is I know that you're a good man. Obviously you won't always be able to stay that good man. And he's like, I just want you to know it's okay. I was like, okay, that's weird. I was like, maybe that's him trying to bury the hatchet, because initially I brought it up before. It's like the way he was looking at Morgan that day, when Daryl had originally left the kingdom. I was like, he's going to use Morgan as a means of setting up the war. But it seems like the person he was going to use was himself. He planned it out. He's even dug up this grave and everything, and he said it says a sign that's bury me here. Basically, they were supposed to bring over 12 of this particular fruit. They only brought 11. So it turned into a situation where the saviors had to show, he's like, hey, you leave us no choice. We got to make an example. Because Richard had planned it all and hid one of the fruits away so they'd be short, so that basically he'd be the one that died. Because it's obviously he'd be the first one to die in this particular case. At least that's what he thought, because it's he's the one that's caused the most troubles in the past. So obviously, even that guy in particular was like, oh yeah, you'd be the first one, but he shot Benjamin instead, which once again I kind of saw coming. I was like, yeah, the fact is you want to die. I was like, at the moment, at the very beginning, I was like, you set this whole thing up, you want it to die, but the fact of the matter is it's not going to be you. How I know? Because the saviors don't work like that. It's not a matter of oh, you take Negan's situation. It's Negan didn't even kill Rick. Yeah, out of anyone, you would think the person to kill would be Rick, because from a logical standpoint, that makes the most sense, because he's a leader. And it's if you kill the leader, I guess in one way you could look at it is you can spark the rest of them, be oh, just shape in line, because it's I took out your that leader. At the same time, it's also because it's Negan saw Rick's potential, so it's kind of a situation of if he can get him in line, the rest of them will follow, kind of situation. So it's obviously, to me, the point I'm trying to get across is the saviors don't base on logic. It's you piss them off enough, they're just going to do whatever they want to. And I guess they felt Ben was an easy target, because it's that guy in particular, because he saw Ben as just some kid. So, I mean, plus, like, I wasn't expecting it just to be a leg shot. I thought he was straight up dead, but like, we came back from the commercial, he's bleeding. I was like, oh, there's a chance to say, but granted, it probably struck an artery or something, so he bled out. Which, anyone could have told Richard not to do that, because literally Spencer did the exact same thing. And how did that situation end? That situation ended with him getting gutted. So it was literally repeated that situation. Like, obviously he had the best of intentions. The whole point was going to spark this whole thing between, because more so than anything, it was his life, because he was ready to give up his life, because it's like, hey, I'm the one that's, it's the only way I'm going to get my king to act. So what I didn't like, because obviously Morgan was the one that figured it out, mainly because Morgan was pissed, because when he looked at Benjamin dying, because Benjamin was a student, he was teaching Benjamin everything Eastman had taught him. So it's a situation of like, it just brought everything back. Seeing such a young kid die, it just brought back his own situation with Wayne, his son, and it's turning him back into that person he was before. Like, killing is the only way he can handle, it's the only thing he can do. Like, he can't satisfy that burning desire inside of him, because he's just filled with so much anger. But then he confronts Richard, and Richard's all apologetic about it, because it's like, it's supposed to be me. But then he twists it, and it's kind of like, you kind of take away, you minimize what you did, because he's like, yeah, I have to live with it for the rest of my life. But it's a situation where it's like, yeah, but we can use this as an opportunity. It's like, Ben's not even been dead that long, and you're already trying to capitalize on his death and use it as a means of starting some stuff. And so that's why it's like, when Morgan ends up eventually killing him, which I was kind of expecting it to go down in Richard's room, but it didn't. So I was like, I guess Morgan's not going. I thought Morgan was going to out him right there in front of the king, because he was like, oh, have you told the king? Because he's told Morgan he's going to tell Ezekiel, but he never did. He's like, this isn't the right time. I was like, oh, it's going to come out now. But it's like, no, before it could even come out, Morgan just strangled him. And I was like, holy crap. Because in his mind, it was a situation of like, oh, use this as an opportunity to make the saviors think, oh, we've fallen in line, we're good, we'll do everything you say, and then let them kind of think like, oh, everything's good. And then when it's all said and done, when they gain your trust back to a good enough point, then strike, because they won't be expecting it. Like I said, even with the saviors, like I said, they have this weird mentality about them. Like, they're very weird, crazy, and random. Like, they're very forceful in their manners, but they also have in their own twisted way, they do have their own sensibilities. Because even this dude's like, the reason I chose this route, to get tributes from you, Ezekiel, rather than anyone else, because I knew it'd be so much easier. Because it's not like he likes causing the problem, because he's like, he wants an easy job that he doesn't stress about. He knows with Ezekiel, he never had to worry about it in the past. Yes, there's been problems recently, but it's a situation where it's like, yeah, this is the most calming part of my day, so I don't have to worry about it too much. I don't have to get too stressed out. But he made the guy that killed Benjamin just walk away, which he's like, get away here, walk away before I kill. Because the whole point wasn't to kill him, it's just to make a point. And like, because you take Negan, for example, Negan at points was like, oh, I'm trying to be reasonable here. It's like, you're psychotic, yes, but you are in your own, once again, weird way, trying to be reasonable. So it's just kind of interesting to see that again. Like, I was just partway kind of expecting him to straight out kill the dude, but he didn't. So I'm kind of like, I don't know. I wonder, is that dude going, like, what's going to happen to him? Is it like, because what I'm wondering is Morgan doing what Richard originally wanted to do? Like, because Morgan's in that spot where it's like, it's hard to say where exactly Morgan will land, because obviously it seems like he's kind of going back to that point where all he needs to do is just kill. He's kind of, because obviously this situation has brought him back to that point, because it's like, obviously before he can keep his balance, but it's like, I guess because once again, it's a situation where it's like, he blames himself, because it was like him who was like, hey, we need to not kill. And now it's turned into a situation where like someone he, care about and was teaching. Obviously there was a thing, because another reason why I kept thinking Benjamin was going to die, because Morgan kept being like, oh, so who's the girl? Because there was a girl that obviously Benjamin kind of liked, is connected to the whole painting that painting or whatever that he got Morgan for his room. So I was like, yeah, but even then it was kind of in my mind, like, because they were setting him up to die. Like the whole, like, oh, telling Benjamin's brother, like, oh, you're not trying to be strong so you can beat your brother. You just want to be strong because you want to be like your brother. It's like, they were just setting that up just to kill him, but still. It was a situation where I was at the very least hoping that he can be saved, but sadly that wasn't the case. So, but I am wondering, is Morgan going to try and do what Richard says of like, oh, let's keep the peace and everything? Then again, things later on, Ezekiel is kind of at that point now, especially because he lost someone very important to him. Because Benjamin's dad was kind of like his most loyal subject, was kind of like his best friend, and he lost him, and now, because he lost Ben's dad because of a mistake he made. Now he lost Ben because I guess it's a situation again where it's almost like a mistake he made again because he didn't act when he was quote unquote supposed to, because it's a situation where I keep calling him Peter. Richard had a situation where he didn't do what he needed to do, and it led to there was a moment where he should have acted but he didn't, and that led to his wife and daughter dying. So, but once again, this kind of explains why he was saying all that stuff to Morgan, because it's like, I want you to know when it's all said and done, Morgan, because I won't be here to be the one to tell you, obviously he knew that if things played out that Morgan would be having to go back into becoming a killer again, and he's like, I want you to know it's not your fault that things play out this way. So it's like, now it makes sense why he did all that. So, but because I knew something was up when Carol walked by that direction again, and Walker was there, and we saw someone in the corner. I was like, wait, what's up with that? And you find, literally a second later, you find out it's Richard. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? You're digging up that, and you see the bag that says Katie, which, later on when Morgan's burying Richard, you do see, no matter how mad he is at Richard, he did still bury him with that bag that was most likely his little girl Katie's. Because I know I'm kind of all over the place, but another part of it was Carol, because Carol was kind of uneasy, and she went to confront Morgan, and she's like, so tell me the truth. Why was Daryl and the others here in the kingdom? Because I think originally when she was talking to Daryl, she knew he was lying to her, but the fact of the matter, she just wanted to believe so strongly that she wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that everything was all right, but there was a part of her that it wasn't sitting right, and it hasn't sat right that entire time. So I guess it's a situation where she couldn't really sleep because she was still thinking about it. And Morgan's like, yeah, you might want to talk to Daryl about it. He's like, if you want to, we can go to Alexandria now, if that's what you want to. Even asking her, has she found, she thought, he probably thought, because obviously Morgan kind of found his own answer. It's not an answer that a lot of people agree with, but Morgan found his own answer, and he was hoping Carol could too. But it's like, even after all this time, Carol's not 100% sure she found her answer. And you see her crying and everything because she's so conflicted, because she also knows what happens. It's like she doesn't need Morgan to really explain. On some level, she already knows what happened. But then he does later on in the episode. He's like, do you want to know the truth? And she's like, yeah, I do. And so she admits, he tells her the entire truth about everything that's happened with the Saviors. And so now she's in a situation where she's trying to keep Morgan. She kind of tells Morgan the same thing he told her. It's like, you don't have to leave and you don't have to stay, kind of giving the in-between choice again. And basically offering the house to Morgan, because I guess for her, she feels like Morgan needs it more than her, because he's just going to go back to being complete like himself, kind of lose himself and just killing. He needs to kill just to keep going to survive, and but then we have her going back to the kingdom and telling Ezekiel she's there to stay for a little while to prepare for the fight. And it's like, Ezekiel's like, yeah, we are going to need a fight, but not today. It's like, for now they try and fix up the garden the best they can, I guess, mainly, also for Benjamin's sake. But it's like, I don't know whether that means Ezekiel's like, yeah, we will, but not right. Not, I mean, in this particular day, it's because Benjamin's just died. So it's like, take some time to mourn and bury, Benjamin. But I think it's also a situation of I'm wondering, is it he also being the time is not yet to strike? Mainly, it's also because, Alexandria's kind of got to get its ducks in a row with the whole gun situation, which last episode, Tara, we don't see the conversation, but obviously Tara does tell Rick about the guns, which we also have Rosita and Sasha also doing their own thing. Something that was crossing my mind while I was watching the episode, I was thinking maybe at the end of it all, it can be Carol who kills him, because Carol isn't necessarily connected to any of the communities, because she wasn't around when the whole savior situation happened. The few saviors that have seen her, that saw her, were killed by her as well as Morgan. So there's no connection on that front, because she wasn't there. Was she? I think she had already left before the attack on that satellite dish that was where the original saviors that they went after last season, I think that's where they were. So I think she wasn't there when they did that. So, like I said, I was thinking so it'd be a situation where Carol could probably kill Negan or something without there being a big thing about it, because it's not like she's directly connected to anything. But it seems like obviously that's no longer an option. So Carol has to go back to being that person now. I'm very interested to see what she does decide to do, because it was a situation where it's like she was conflicted and she never really found her answer, but maybe going down this path she will. It's a situation where it's like it's hard. Yes, in your mind you want to think there is a clear right and wrong, but at the end of the day it comes down to belief and survival. Like, for example, like what Morgan and Carol are doing, like not wanting to fight. It's like with Morgan it makes sense. You're kind of like, you might need that mentality to like kill to survive in this world, but at the same time it's like you don't want to mindlessly be killing. I mean, it's kind of the only way he can handle his grief is just by mindless killing, and that's not living, that's not surviving. Even though like I said, a lot of people may not agree with the way Morgan handles the situation by not fighting or not wanting to kill, but at the very least it brought him peace, and at least he wanted to keep on living. For him, it was all about fighting until he died, and it's like, hopefully, it seems like he might be able to pull himself back a little bit with Carol giving him that place, but obviously at the end we see him kind of a little jumpy, so it's like he's kind of expecting, ready for a fight around every corner. So I don't know, but like I said, more so than anything, I'm definitely in that, but also definitely interested to see where Carol falls on his whole situation, because it's like now she kind of has to go back, because Daryl went through a lot to make sure she wouldn't know the truth, but now she does. I was wondering if it was going to be a situation where her and Morgan go back and, she finds out the truth from them, but it's like, no, Morgan had to tell her the truth. She wanted to know. She knew she wasn't going to like the answer, but she still felt like she needed to know. I guess in her mind, it's better to know, because she can't be in ignorance, especially after everything that they've lost, all of it they've lost. So, I think I brought this up last episode, but if I did, I'm sorry, but it's very interesting. To me, this season went by like super fast. I guess because it's been a while since I've seen The Walking Dead live, I think. Because the last time, because I'd missed like the second half of season 5 and all of season 6 when they were originally airing. Because the last season I watched live was up to like, I think around the time Tyrese died was like around the last time I watched live, maybe a little past that, I don't remember. Because it's kind of interesting, because anyone that doesn't know, I came into the show late. By the time I started watching The Walking Dead, like roughly the 3rd season had just ended, I think, when I originally started watching it. So I've never actually seen that many seasons live, now that I think about it. I saw the entirety of 4 live, I saw parts of 5, like I said, at least more than half of 5 live, and now I'm seeing all of 7 live. So I just think that's kind of interesting how that breaks down like that. But I guess that's why, because it seems weird to me. It's like, man, the season's almost over, because the seasons are all pretty short. They're only like 16 episodes, obviously, with the exception of the first season. But it's like, there's only 3 more episodes left for this season, and it's like, obviously, a lot of stuff is being set up, and I'm not sure where this is all going to play out. Like I said, I had the feeling like maybe Negan's going to be taken care of by the end of the season. Maybe not. I don't know if he's going to be like a season 8. Because obviously, I've brought it up before, I've never read the comic book, so I don't know how long he is. And how long he is in the story. Because Negan seems like the type of situation where it's like, obviously he's an awesome bad guy, but obviously he's not going to be around forever. Eventually they're going to find a way to take care of him. Because I've also heard people talk about, compared to the comic book, that this show kind of goes through a lot of the like comic books arcs pretty quickly. They've kind of picked up pace like subsequently since like season 2. I mean, for obvious reasons and everything. But like, I don't know like comparatively like how much of like this like whole savior / Negan arc is actually being like ran through, in comparison to the show. So I'm very interested to see how this all goes, because we're like winding down and everything. So. But it does seem like this is setting up the fact is that Ezekiel, it's not even a situation of like, oh, he needed Carol to convince him. Things playing out the way they did. Not only losing Benjamin, but Richard because Richard was one of the people that Ezekiel trusted most, and it's like having him betray you out of anybody just makes it that much harder. So I wonder would things have played out differently if Richard had gone ahead and told Ezekiel ahead of time. Like, would Morgan have done that? But there was that moment that Morgan had slipped up and called. He was like, oh, wouldn't have this wouldn't have happened to Dwayne, wouldn't have died. And Ezekiel's like, Dwayne? He's like, I meant Benjamin. So overall, very good episode. Obviously, super sad, but like I said, it's also setting up a lot too. So it's going to be very interesting, like I said, to see where it goes in these next 3 episodes. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.